And good morning. It's always a pleasure to bring in Karen Onan. She is from the East Central Regional Transportation Coordinating Council. We've been doing our chats a couple times a month here for a while and letting folks know in our listening area about transportation, the availability or lack thereof. And Karen is kind enough to come in and bring her expertise and guests. We'll have a guest this morning, as a matter of fact. But good morning, Karen, and I want to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. And same to you.
And this morning, to kind of start things off, you had a story, an experience that you wanted to share this morning.
Well, we're going to get into ridership, a bus and transit ridership. And I have a little story here. My past husband used to call me a good passenger. Personally, I don't like to drive. I like to ride, and I love being in a vehicle and going places, and we used to take long trips together. He always said I was a good passenger because I would have snacks and I'd have water and napkins and I would always keep my eyes peeled, as he would say, for deer and other animals. I would also announce exit signs. You know, we got to get off on 36A. And I'd say it a few times and he'd kind of get upset with me for that too. But, you know, we got along pretty well. And I'd always try to stay awake with him. You know, I didn't want to fall asleep because that would be rude. So being a good passenger with public transit is another matter. But there are contributions that a rider can make just as well. So we all want the system to run like a clock and to be safe and to be comfortable and for the driver to be able to do his or her job. Well, today we have Helen Pieper here from Timber Trails Public Transit, and she would like to share some of the good attributes for good ridership. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you for having me. It's really important, and I think it's really funny that you opened with a clock, since some of the things that we're going to talk about really have a lot to do with the clock.
Let's talk a little bit about this. A first question that I have is, when you talk about riding a bus in a rural area and you talk about riding a bus in the metropolitan area, what's the differences there?
Well, some of it's the same. You're using a larger vehicle with a number of people to get where you need to go. What you see in metropolitan areas is something called fixed route, where the bus has bus stops and certain times that it's at a stop and certain places that it's going to stop along its route. And some rural transit systems do have something called a fixed deviated route, where they know that they're going to start at point A and they're going to get to point B. And along point B, they're generally going to take the same route, but they can have these deviations where they can just go off a little bit and pick somebody up. For Timber Trails in our service area, we run a fully demand response service, which means that our routes are built, literally built, by who's riding that day and where they need to go. And so we're currently scheduling our buses to make pickups every 7 to 10 minutes. That may seem like a fair amount of time to some folks, but if you consider that literally to drive, say, from one side of Mora to the other is going to take you 3 to 4 minutes. It's not very far, and you don't even think about it if you're in your car. But for a bus and for a dispatcher planning a route, you have to build all of this stuff into it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, our buses are scheduled to pick up every 7 to 10 minutes. We love all of our riders, and we are very pleased to be able to help folks that have trouble getting around. And the thing to remember with that is, say somebody's using a wheelchair and they need to get from point A to point B. We're glad to have them, but it takes longer.
Sure, just the loading and unloading.
Right.
Yep.
You know, a bus has to be secured. You have to put the brakes on. The driver has to come around, lower the lift. We're glad to do that. If a driver is really good and everything goes well, it takes about 7 minutes to help someone into the bus and secure the chair, get the lift closed, and go on to your next stop. So the other thing that I really want to emphasize for the riding public, you know, if you use a walker, do not be afraid to come out and ask the driver to lower the lift for you.
So much easier.
Much rather, you know, take a couple extra minutes and help you get on the bus with the lift than have somebody fall trying to get up those stairs.
No doubt. Yeah, because making those steps up, if you're using a walker, can be difficult.
It's very difficult. And our passenger safety is really, really our first security. We have all kinds of things that we have to do, but passenger safety is so important to us.
If you do schedule a ride with Timber Trails, you will want to let them know whether you do have a wheelchair or a walker so that they will allow for more time for that.
That's right.
And it is not an inconvenience. It would be the opposite if you didn't tell them. It's like running a clock, and it's amazing that you know it's 7 minutes to get from here to here. I mean, that perfection in knowledge and knowing is so important here. And we were talking earlier, too, about the window. We were talking about the 3 minutes that you allow after the bus gets to the stop.
Yep.
They will wait 3 minutes. But the first thing is that the passengers need to know is they should be ready 15 minutes before the time scheduled. Because the bus can come early. Yeah. And if the bus comes early, it will only wait 3 minutes.
I wanted to say that window is not something that is unique to Timber Trails. Every rural transit system has that window. Most of them across the state do have the 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. I do understand that people think, well, 3 minutes, that's ridiculous. But when you think that there's another rider to be picked up in 7 to 10 minutes and could be as much as 5 minutes away, 3 minutes is really all that we have. I want to help people understand what it's like to run rural transit. I want to see that light come out in their eyes when they get this and they understand it.
Well, it's a respect, too. I mean, if you had a best friend that was picking you up to go somewhere, you're going to be ready for them when they get there, and you're going to run out, and that's because you respect their time. And it's kind of the same thing here, and especially with public transit, that there is a procedure and there's a process, and you've got to plan ahead.
If we can see you, we take a lot of folks from a lot of different backgrounds, and we know some folks take a little longer to get out to the bus. And if we see you coming, we're not going to drive away. But don't just leave us hanging there without coming out.
Acknowledging.
And you talked about this being just good neighbor type of stuff. For Timber Trails, it's more than good neighbors. For us, it's actually about our funding. When we talked last year about the performance measures that we have, our on-time performance is one of the things that we are judged on, and we have to report our on-time performance to MnDOT, and actually MnDOT then turns around and reports it to the FTA. So,
and the FTA is a Federal Transit Administration.
So it's more than just being nice. It's a part of making sure that we can keep the funding that we have and that we can keep the service that we have.
And you're funded through the FTA and MnDOT at a great rate.
85% of our funding for the last couple of years with COVID, 100% of our funding has come either through FTA or through Minnesota, through the general fund in Minnesota. I'm proud to say since Timber Trails came to Kanabec County in 2009, no county tax dollars have had to go into running those public transit buses.
Isn't that something?
We've been able to make that 15% local match right out of our buses, and that's the thing that most systems across the state have not done. But Timber Trails has. I'm proud of that.
And you should be. This explanation of, the times and all that, to me, it just makes common sense that I would think when somebody calls for the first time, you probably give them a quick tutorial.
Yes.
This is what we're looking at. I bet there's a very finite number that really might push that envelope. I would like to think for the most part, people are so glad to have the service.
Exactly. When they understand why that 3-minute window is.
Right. They're reasonable. Yeah.
If somebody doesn't come out, we often try to cycle the bus back through. But you look at a situation where you have a bus scheduled out every 7 to 10 minutes and somebody doesn't come out but calls and says, I gotta go, come back and get me, please. We're going to try and cycle that bus back through. But we've already got that bus scheduled for all of those times.
Sure.
And so quite literally, if somebody doesn't come out and get on time, you could cause that bus to be late for the stops for the next
duration.
couple of hours.
So when somebody has an appointment and they know they're going to need to be picked up, how do you guys work that out? Because those appointments can vary.
We ask people to do a couple of things. Number one, call in as early as possible. We literally build our routes around each person's appointment times or needs to go. So call early so that you get your spot saved. We're not going to bump you for somebody who calls for a same-day ride.
What do you mean by early? Could I call a month in advance?
Oh, yeah. Sooner the better then.
Okay.
Yeah. For sure, we'd like to have you call at least a day in advance. We really want to build smart routes. If we're going to be out on the north edge of town and 4 people want to come in and go shopping, let's pick all 4 people up.
Right, have it make
within
sense.
in the same time frames. That's what we're asking. Help us build smart routes. Help us keep those smart routes on time. Get people where they need to go. You asked about appointment times. So if somebody has an appointment, we're going to schedule it so that there's plenty of time to get you there by your appointment time.
Okay.
Sometimes when the buses are really full, like they are right now, we may have to pick you up 40 minutes before your appointment. I'm sorry that it's that way, but we can get you there.
Sure.
You're just going to have a little wait time. And then what happens after an appointment, especially at the clinics and stuff, is we have what's called a will call. And so instead of sending the bus back and nobody is ready and send them back again, we wait until you call and tell us that you're ready, and then we'll send the next available bus back.
That's what I
for
was
you.
wondering, is how that worked, because you never know how long an appointment's going to be.
Right. It can go over. It can get done really short.
Yep. And so you can't just say, well, I'm expecting this or that, you know.
In all the years that I've been doing this, and I actually became the director back in 2003 when we were still just a Mille Lacs County organization. I can count on one hand the number of times that we've had a mistake where somebody was left and didn't get home. And I really can only think of 2. And here's why. Each of our buses has a tablet in it. And our dispatch software, so somebody calls in and says, I'm ready. The dispatcher types it in, lets the driver know on the radio, and it shows up on that driver's tablet within like 30 seconds that they have it. And so at the end of a shift or at the end of an hour, we not only have our dispatchers seeing that screen and seeing who's picked up and who isn't, but our bus drivers have this list. And so we don't have a whole lot of problem with people getting left. What we have a bigger problem with is, oh, well, so-and-so was at the clinic and I just caught a ride home with her. And they didn't call us.
They
and
didn't
tell
let you
us.
know. Okay.
And so we've got this rider who keeps showing up, not home yet, not home yet. And so the dispatchers will be calling and saying, you know, are you home?
Are you okay?
all right?
Did you make it home?
Oh, yeah. And it's like, next time, I'm glad you're home safe. Can you call us and let
Give
us
us
know?
a-
'Cause
yeah,
then-
give us a
then
notice.
We'll get you off the tablet.
Well, that was that other thing that we had talked about where people, they decide they don't want to go or they change their mind.
I'm not feeling well. I'm not going to go today.
But they
And
don't call
They
you.
don't call. Our phone system is such that it answers the phone 24/7. If you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you know you're not going on that bus at
Just
8,
give a call.
Call at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're not waking anybody up. It's going to be there. My operations supervisor, who I praise to high heaven, by the way, Kevin, he starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. His first bus rolls out about 7, so we'll know. Get the message.
You know,
it's
just
like-
let them know one way or the other. Have the understanding about how the system works. And if it's your first time, you know, they'll give you the tutorial probably when you call for the first appointment, I would think.
They do. And actually, they do it a lot. Gentle reminders. Okay, so your scheduled pickup time is 9:15. Please be ready to go by 9 o'clock and be watching for the bus.
Just knowing those guidelines, I think the majority of people are so thrilled to be able to get around. And Helen, you're doing a great job.
Yes.
19 years on the job. We appreciate what you're doing in
So
our
much.
area.
But, you know, I do so little compared to the dispatchers and the bus drivers and the operations supervisor. They're the ones that open the door with a smile on their face and
get the
answer
job
phone.
done. Karen, is there anything else we need to touch on before we go?
I just want to say thank you. And you've been the one who's pulled all those wonderful people together.
Give your information, though, Karen, before we go. I like the one-stop shop that you've set up for people that can go and find out really everything about transportation in our area.
Right. So all you need to do is go on to the website, eastcentraltransit.com. And there's a directory there that will tell you all the different service providers that we have in the area. All these podcasts that we've done here are on there. And my contact information is on there as well if you have any questions. But, you know, Timber Trails information, the website, their phone number, the dispatcher's numbers, all of it is on there, eastcentraltransit.com.
I so appreciate that. And Helen, before I let you go, somebody might be listening and not have a computer today. What is the number for Timber Trails?
Timber Trails can be reached at 320-364-1350, or it works really well to go ahead and email in your requests. Then we've got some written copies to work with.
Great idea.
So timber.trails at co.knabec.mn.us.
Good job, ladies. I appreciate your time as always. And this transit update has been brought to you in part by MnDOT.